What's up, y'all, and welcome to the Michael Experience Podcast. I am your orator originator, Michael, and these are my experiences, my thoughts on my life, my way. So let's get into it. So, I told you all about how I kind of transitioned in my love journey and finding that first experience in love that really shaped what I would look like in my relationships with men moving forward and how I would love and how I nurtured my love and things like that going into the situation. And so I also use that to kind of bolster this conversation of being single 8 years after that fact, and 2.5 years after the breakup from the incitement of that relationship. But I kind of alluded to having a recent situation that changed me, or at least changed my perception about some things. And so I want to go ahead on and talk about it. So, again, after a 5.5 year relationship, give or take a couple months, maybe five and a half, and it being really, really loving, wonderful, and all those things, I started dating again. And of course, that took me through a series of dating hardships, I guess I should say, and, meeting just a ton of men, right? And that should be a wonderful thing. It should be a wonderful thing to meet men who want to take you on a date or want to spend nights conversing with you and so forth and so on. But what could seem on the surface like a gift really was a lesson, if I would say so myself. But I mean, everything in this 2.5 years from, I will start with just saying, like, people misrepresenting themselves, people having mental issues, like certified mental issues that go unchecked, and then trying to insert that into a relationship. And then, people who want to be very manipulative with money. I ran into that for, I think, the first time in my life. Is like this millionaire conversation, feeling like that's supposed to mean something. But I mean, people dating without having their finances in order, people who are looking for their next come up, people that want to do it for the gram, people that just want to do it for the DICK or the ASSS or for the pizza or church dinner, as I affectionately call it. You know what I'm saying? When you just want to eat up a little something, sop it up in a little biscuit and gravy. But I ran the full gambit throughout this 2.5 years of dating. And so in the situation, I might date for 2 months. And then if I get overwhelmed or I feel like it's not going anywhere, I take a break. And I think that's okay. I think you have to tell yourself, if you are single, lonely, and waiting, as I named one of my series on TikTok, if you're single, lonely, and waiting for the right one, it's okay to take moments and pauses from dating. Like, dating, the act of dating really is strenuous. It can be very strenuous in a physical way, in an emotional way, in an intellectual way. You're navigating somebody else's feelings, somebody else's thoughts, communication, no matter how ill informed, incoherent, um, uh, you know, but illogical at times. But you're kind of managing and sifting through all of that stuff. And if you do it enough, you do end up, depleted at some point, or you do feel exhausted at some point, or weary at some point. So in my journey, like, I had to say, okay, like, I've gone on a couple of dates this week with a few guys, and I'm gonna have to sit down for a while, because to sit across from someone for an hour or 2 hours, and I really hate to say this, but I don't hate to say this at the same time, but you kind of do the same dance over and over and over again, right? You have the conversation on the phone with somebody, right? Most of us, I think. You have the conversation on the phone via text or however you do it, or social media if that's if the apps and whatever, your social app or whatever. You communicate through there before the date. But then you get to the date, and what bothers me is repetition. A lot of repetition will drive me nuts, because I usually get it on the first go. So repeating the same thing to me really does get on my nerves. I mean, I get aggravated. And so when we've had those conversations via text, via the app or whatever it is, or via phone call, FaceTime, and then we get to the date in person and it's a reiteration of the same thing. And I'm not talking about anything meaningful, impactful. I'm talking about it's the same thing. Oh, your favorite color was blue, right? Yeah, and you said you were looking for a relationship, right? And I'm like, no shit, Sherlock. That is why we are here. I was, and I understand wanting to confirm things, but like, we do the same dance over and over and over again. We do it with that person, and then we do it again with somebody else and somebody else. Unless you're lucky enough to find your person early in the dating, which I'm going to say, girl, guy, they, them, she, he, she, we. I'm glad that y'all found y'all's on the first or second try. But for the rest of us that are out here, child, we sick and we tired and we tired and we sick. So I find myself in those moments being like, God, can we just fast forward past this surface level stuff and just really get to the good stuff? What I have found in that is the good stuff is just far few and in between. And a lot of the reason why I say that is because I find that a lot of men in this space, and it's maybe women too, but I haven't dated women in a long time. Um, a lot of men are regurgitating the same talking points and sound bites that they see on the internet. And so in a space where everyone is saying like, oh yes, I want to find my person, I want to find my life partner, I want to find my husband, I've had to realize that so many people are just throwing that out here frivolously and with empty intention behind it. There are some parameters that you have to have in place before you even contend with a long term project partner or whatever it is that you have. And so I've struggled with that throughout this dating journey. And then also the other talking point that people just throw out frivolously, meaningless, and empty is, oh, I want consistency and communication. God, you do this dance long enough and you just are like, what is going on here? Like, is everybody reading the same book? Everybody watching the same podcast? Is no one thinking for themselves? Because why are we saying the same things over and over? And like, can we just be more specific about what that means? And so that is where I like to go in my conversations. I'm like, talk plainly. Let's talk direct to the point or whatever. And I'll tell somebody that, like, let's just speak plainly, because talking me in circles because of these podcasts and these little sound clips that you saw doesn't do any of us a service. Because if you tell me you want communication and consistency, I'm going to then ask you, okay, what does communication and consistency look like for you? And then you're going to stare at me in the face like a deer in the headlights, like you don't know what the definition of communication and consistency means. And I'm going to say, well, I can tell you what Webster says it is, but the fact that we have to have this conversation like the rest of the internet would mean that we may know what the definition is, but we don't know what it looks like. So I'm going to need you to illustrate for me and do it and be as descriptive as you can be of what does communication and consistency look like for you, right? Because I don't assume that people know everything or anything, when it comes to it. And you should assume the same, or not assume the same, should I say. But that is how I operate. But I get the dead stares. And so I remember being on one of my dates, and when I asked him that question, and he was like, well, if I have to tell a grown man that what that looks like, then that's already a problem. I said, the fact that you are asking for communication and consistency, and then the moment somebody asks you what that looks like or to go deeper and you say that it's a problem for you to explain, I said that in itself is the real problem, because you're already negating the fact that you want communication. So communication means that I have to ask you questions to understand what it is that you are looking for, because communication and consistency to me may mean something different than what it means to you. I said, so allow me to illustrate, right? Someone can communicate consistently and it can be consistently bad. So when I talk about communication and consistency, are you talking about frequency of communication? Because somebody could text you 20 times a day and it could be 20 things that you don't want to hear, right? Or do you want the quality of communication? Like, I don't need to hear from you every day, but when we're off on a Friday and we both know that that's time that we, have that's free for somebody else, like then we're going to have meaningful conversations. I said, so for me, when I say that I want communication, I can tell you that I don't need you to text me every day, good morning, beautiful, good morning, handsome, good morning, gorgeous. You can, if that feels good for you and you're just like, I want you to know that I'm thinking about you, that's great. But I don't need that level of communication. I will appreciate it, but I don't need that. But if you're a person that's like, no, I want to wake up every morning and be affirmed. I want you to send me an inspirational quote in the morning if you're thinking about me. I want you to send me some kissy faces or some emojis throughout the day. Then you need to say that, because we don't all process information the same way. So, in a world where people are asking for communication consistency but are unable to illustrate and or give it, is the first issue for me. It is the first issue. I would never ask somebody for communication in a relationship or whatever situation, whatever. I would never ask for that and then be offended because somebody wants to go deeper or wants to expand a conversation. That to me alone lets me know that you're not ready for what you're asking for. And then what is consistency for you, right? Do we talk every day? Is it every other day? And you just are like, oh my God, like you should just know. You don't just know what somebody else likes or they don't like. There are people like me who don't call me at 6 o'clock in the morning. Because if you call me at 6 o'clock in the morning, the Michael you get at 6 a.m. is going to be different than the one you receive at 6 p.m. Okay? It's going to be a lot less laughs, a lot less hugs, and a lot less excitement in my voice. Okay? Now, right now, I don't know. I might be giving you a Tony Braxton, giving you something that you can feel. But listen here, if you call me at 6 a.m. in the morning, I might be giving you a little Teddy. I think you better let it go. Do, 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 do. Because you might get TKO'd, you know. So you have to be communicative and hence asking for communication. You have to be clear on what it is that you're asking for and what you're requiring. And you should never be upset or put off by having to teach a grown man or a grown person what communication with you looks like. Like that's a part of it, because it's communication with you, for you, to you. It involves you. It involves me and you. And so that's a very important thing that I think people miss out on in the very beginning, right? Because that lets me know that you're not ready to put in the work. If you're that put off, you're not ready to put in the work. And then consistency, we can't even talk about consistency, in my opinion. I think we need to just throw that away, because there are people that will consistently text me every other month. They will consistently text me when they bored and ain't got nobody else to talk to. They will consistently blow my phone up with stupid stuff. They will consistently send me TikTok videos, right? Consistently. So just because something is consistent, also, that doesn't mean that it's great. So we have to talk about what that looks like too, right? So back to my point earlier, so does that mean that on the free day that we have, not our only off day, but the free day that we have to give time to somebody else, does that mean that we convene at that hour? That's consistently. That's of value and of good impact to both of us. It's conducive to both of our wants, desires, needs, time, whatever the case may be. That's more conducive. I would think so. But nobody wants to have these conversations. Everybody thinks that you're just going to show up and you're going to be like, okay, you're going to know what I want out of communication and you're going to know what I want out of consistency and you're going to deliver. And you're not going to ask me nothing and I'm not going to tell you nothing. You're going to just know. And if I have to tell you, this is not for me. And I think that that is a crazy way to approach dating. So just throw out communication, because stop saying it. Just stop saying it and just have conversations, and wherever they go, right? If you're willing. But I've run into that across every single situation. It's the I want my partner, I want my husband, I want my da 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 da. And then it's the communication and consistency, da 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 da. The other thing I will introduce into the situation is the people that go through the menagerie of BS, up to, including, but not limited to, the first two things I discussed, when their real motive and their only goal was to get some sex out of it. Like that has definitely been one of the things too. And if I had to quantify, I would say a good 45% of it has been people who just want to get to the sex, and they want to get to the sex in a way that it doesn't feel shameful for them. Now it's shameful to them because you was on some bullshit to try to get it, but that it doesn't feel shameful for them. Meaning they want to do at hoe activities without going to the hoe arena and picking up a said hoe with a name tag on it that says I'm a hoe. Okay, they don't want that one. They want the one over here. They want to turn the wannabe wife or husband, into a HOE or a 304. And that is the craziest thing, right? Because when you encounter people who are telling you and showing you that, like, this is what I want, I'm very adamant about it, and you take your time, you do a willful and intentional masking and masquerading around as somebody who wants the same thing, all in an effort to create this false sense of comfortability, this false sense of connection, this false sense of romance, just to get that thing. I think it's terrible to, first of all, do it, but it's even worse to maintain that over months, even years. Some people would keep up that charade, and I think that is just insanely and immensely terrible, and that makes you a terrible person for doing it. At what point does your moral compass or your north star kick in? That's like, hey, like, I'm doing the wrong thing here? Or are you just so selfish and self-centered that the only thing that matters is what you want? That's bad karmatic energy, in my opinion. But hey, what do I know? So you run into those people, and it's unfortunate that we have to add that to the list of filtering out that we have to do, but it is also something that we have to filter out as well. So not only do we have to contend with who really wants their life partner, who really wants their husband, wife, or husband, or whatever, who really does want to put in the work to communicate and provide consistency and reciprocate and all those things. We also have to filter out those who want to pretend and take advantage of in an effort just to get that one thing, when that one thing is available. It's available on demand, in case you didn't know, ladies, gentlemen, they, them, he, she, we. All of those things are readily available on apps like Sniffies and Jacks and Grinder and Scruff and BGC and Christian Mingle and Archer. All of that is available at the touch of a fingertip. All you need to do is send a video or a picture of the thing that you desire to get or that you desire to receive, and somebody will respond in kind. And it takes no more than 60 seconds. Honestly, they move quicker than a drive through at McDonald's, and most of them are pretty quick unless it's a Sunday. But even then, these apps are beating out the competition. So for the life of me, I don't understand why that is even a factor in the situation. I don't understand it. But anyway, if you collect Pokemon, I guess it's kind of like collecting Pokeballs. So those are the things that I have contended with in, dating in this last 2.5 years that I've been single. And so you run the gamut with that stuff, and we will here at the Michael Experience talk about all of those things and have some wonderful story times in between, because some of those stories are just downright hilarious, right? But I just wanted to kind of take you guys back to bring you to where I am now. So again, all of that stuff has happened. I've taken multiple breaks because that is just very taxing work to do over and over and over again, right? And I will say that maybe two or three, we didn't work out for each other, and it's okay. But the rest were just a menagerie of the other BS. And so I've had to take multiple breaks, and I think you should, because it's good for your mental health. Like, you're already lonely and upset, I'm sure. You know what I mean? Yes, single, lonely, and waiting, like I was or still am in some aspects or whatever. But I think that you need to take those breaks to decompress. And so I've had to take like moments of like, okay, I'm not going to participate. I'm not going to. And so this year, 2025, I knew that I was moving from Baltimore to Dallas. So I knew last year that this was happening. And so I did have like a friend with benefit situation. And I did cut that off. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to engage in anything more, because I do really want my person. And honestly, that was counterproductive to wanting my person. And some of y'all be like, Mike, ain't nothing wrong with that. However, getting my needs met temporarily would be a barrier in getting my needs, wants, desires met for the long term, right? Because it still would be something that would be there. And so I was like, let me just remove that. And it was easy because I was moving anyway in a couple of months. And so I walked into 2025 celibate and still single. And I was just like, I don't know when I'm going to get back to wanting to date, but I will try to get back to it when I feel that I have the capacity to do so because I was worn out. So fast forward, right? This year, this is now November. So fast forward to about August around my birthday or whatever. I move here, buy a home here, all that wonderful things. Homeowner for the first time, by the way. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And so I do that and I take that step and I say, okay, around August, I decide, okay, let me just put a couple of feelers out here and let me see what's happening. And so I get out in the city some, met a weirdo. Um, but whatever. But got out in the city, met a couple of people, didn't really connect in that way. Okay, fine. My friend says, well, get on the dating apps because some people don't want to approach you because you're not approachable, friend. You just look mean. And I said, well, do I still look mean? I try to smile more when I'm out so that I don't look so mean and so focused or whatever. I mean, I'm watching my back because you never know. You got to keep your head on a swivel. You have to keep your head on a swivel. You never know, who's mad about whatever they're mad about. You know what I'm saying? So I do look serious a lot of times when I'm out, but it's only because I'm making sure that I know what's going on around me at all times. But he says, so you don't look approachable, friend. And sometimes people will, be like, hey, is that you over there? And da 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 da. And I said, okay, well, I understand what you're saying or whatever. So, I let him download the app on my phone, and it took me a minute to put pictures up because I was kind of like, I mean, if I got to go through all this, I don't want to do it. If I'm being honest with y'all, and if I got to do all this, I don't want to do it or whatever. But I was like, okay, whatever. So one day I was like, oh, fine. I had a couple of drinks of tequila. I said, fuck it. Let me put a picture on here. Very, very, very cute pictures. Now I wouldn't go. I don't do X rated, okay, unless we, in an X rated kind of situation. But most of the time it's not that. But so I did it or whatever, and I drank, I went to sleep, I woke up and probably didn't pay attention to it right away. But I was out with my same friend and he was like, open, da 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 da. And I was like, what? Open up your app or something, he said. So I opened up the app and I have like probably 100 or so messages on the app. And in my mind, I'm like, oh shit. Like, I just put these pictures on there like 2 days ago. Like, you know what I mean? And I was like, I didn't expect to get so many people in the inbox or whatever. Now, mind you, right? There's a bunch of messages in there, but y'all know it's a lot of disappearing photos and videos and things like that, and faceless profiles and nameless profiles in there, which are very cringe to me at this point. Like at this point, I'm kind of too old to do the anonymous, the kind of like hiding kind of thing, especially on an app. Like I'm just like, ugh. And then in my mind, I think some of the people have been on there for years any damn way. Because I noticed some faces from the last time I lived in Dallas, which was like 7, 8 years ago. So some of y'all are still on here. Like at this point, you are no longer anonymous, sir, ma'am, sir, they, them. You're just not. Anywho, that just drives me crazy to begin with. So then we go through the process of seeing who is sending decent messages. And so you see photo, video, private, unlocked. So you see all of those things. You see eggplant emojis with the water beside it. You see peaches with the water beside it. You know what I mean? You see the loving eyes and the fire signs. And so those are typically the ones that I don't look at first. I'm like, I'm not looking at them messages. I already know what they talking about or whatever. Typically, I already know what you thinking, right? We even fully dressed, you undressing me. Ain't that something? That's a hell of a skill. We got to learn how to market that, people. We got to learn how to market it because people will undress you quickly and make estimations and guesstimations about what you're selling and serving and baking and all that other good stuff or whatever. But so I would just kind of look at the ones that would mention my name. Like if somebody says, good evening, Michael, or hey, Michael, or something like that, I would say, okay, those are the people that I'm going to address first because they seem like they know how to approach people. Because if we were in person, I would fully expect that you would walk up to me and say, hey, I'm such and such, what's your name? Or, hey, I just, you're very, hey, I don't know your name, but you're a very gorgeous guy. I just had to tell you. So I would imagine that in real life, that's how it happens. And you all can correct me if I'm wrong from where you're sitting, but I've never had a man walk up to me and just pull his pants down and bend over while I'm out. I've never had nobody walk over and just like, yeah, you want to hit these tutti flutes that I got? You want to get some of this gushy mushy. I've never had nobody walk in front of me just pull it out. You know what I mean? It'd be like whatever. And even for the guys that want a little tootsie cat, I've never met a guy in person that walked up to me, whipped that bad boy out, and said, "Yeah, let me put the tip in." You ain't never had nobody do it like me, girl. Give me that tootsie. I've never met anybody to do that in person. As a matter of fact, I think even if I met somebody who had that kind of communication and had that kind of vigor about wanting to do it, if I went to their home or came to my home, and I've tested this out a couple of times, I'll walk in the front door and be like, okay, take them pants off. And they be like, well, hold on, slow down, player, slow down real quick, but let's go get something to drink. I need to roll up first or something like that. Nah, player, you was all up in my DMs trying to show that monkey. So go ahead on and pull that motherfucker out. Lay that giraffe down, put that giraffe neck down to the grass, baby, and let's see if it's gonna get to feeding him and marinating and stuff like that. So I always find it very interesting that people feel safer hiding behind an app, and that being their barrier of protection, but also their reason to throw all moral and logic out the window when in person you wouldn't do that. Like it's a whole like, hold on, let's warm up first, child. So for those reasons, I tend to go for the people that start the conversation in a way that I think would mirror what I would respond to in real life. And so I did that. I got on the apps or whatever. Now, a couple of people will keep up the conversations. They'll keep up the conversations and, it'll seem like normal day to day conversation. And I'm honestly, you guys, not really interested, but I understand that there's a slow build up with most. And so I'm like, okay, I'll deal with the how was your day today? Oh, I did this. Any plans for the weekend? Blah, 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 blah. Like, what are your interests? What are your hobbies? Like, I will deal with what's your favorite? Oh my God, you love Tony Braxton. Me too. What's your favorite song? I'm willing to listen to that, but only for so long before I'm like, listen, let me just get to it. What is your intention with getting to know me or trying to get to know someone, even if it's not me? Like, what is your intention? When you ask that question, you are met with it could be a montage of things that you're met with, but you get people that's like, well, I'm not looking for anything. Uh, and I'm always like, dear God, this couldn't be the worst response. I mean, this couldn't be more of a worse response, is what I meant to say. Because, like, God, like, what are you doing here then if you're not looking for anything? I guess, I don't know. For some people, it's more appealing to the ego, or appetizing to the ego to just pretend like you just happened upon here by accident and that you started a conversation by accident, as so that you don't feel like a failure if the person doesn't connect with you or rejects you. So you say, I'm not looking for anything. Then what are you here for? So I'm already like at that point, just gauging your mental acuity level as like a negative at that point. Like your mental acuity is just beneath the dirt. You know what I'm saying? Crown Point Cemetery style. Because why are you unable to articulate what made you get on this app? So that's red flag number one. But then there are people that are on there, it's like, yeah, I'm just trying to see what's up. I'm just trying to see what's up. Can you be a little bit more specific about that? What do you mean, what's up? I'm just going with the flow. The flow could go a lot of different ways. The ocean is vast, my guy. The sea is far and wide. What flow is it that you are looking for? Because if you keep going, I'm gonna flow you right out the door. Okay. So I mean, there's just some of those are just the absolute worst, but very common things that you get. And then of course you get the people that are like, I mean, if something happens, I'm good with it. But if not, I mean, a good friend or just a good situation. I'm like, dear God, why is it so hard for men to just say whatever it is that they want? Why is it so hard to get on here and instead of saying I'm going with the flow, just say shit. I'm out here wasting time. Why is this so hard to just be like, I'm out here wasting time? Like I already know you asking me that because you probably want a relationship. But honestly, I'm just out here trying to see what the vibe is like. And honestly, if the vibe is right, I just want to fuck and that be it. I might want to fuck today and that's it. Then maybe tomorrow, the day after. I don't know. And there are people that if you ask, they will flat out say that. And I appreciate them. I appreciate them so bad when they just be like, listen, I just wanted to tap or whatever. You know, I'm like, okay, cool. Listen, I just, your thing, them thighs in that picture, I mean, I know you had the clothes on, but shit look pink or, I mean, the shit look good, whatever it is. It might be pink, it might be airy brown. So I really do just appreciate when people just flat out be like, yo, this is what I'm doing or whatever. I'm just looking to cut something. Okay, cool. All right, well, go about your way. Have a good day. You know what I mean? Happy trails to you at the end of the, at the end of the yellow brick road. However, that's not the majority of people, right? And so, as I say that, those people that send the pics and videos first, I do appreciate them doing it. So don't think because I skipped over them that I don't appreciate them doing. Oh, I appreciate it because you've made your wants, desires, and needs known at the beginning of the conversation. However, that's just not what I'm looking for. So we're gonna look past it, okay? Until such time I decided to revisit that chapter in the Book of Michael Experiences. But right now we're moving on to higher and brighter. And so when you get those kinds of responses from people, right? I think two things happen, right? You can be one of those people that's so hopeless and maybe helpless or whatever, or desperate or just so lonely that you just engage in conversation anyway because you're like, well, it leaves room for them to want to do something. And maybe if I'm a great person, they'll see that and I'll be the one that changes their mind and switches them all the way over. Best of luck to you in the Hunger Games, niece, nephew, or they, them. Best of luck to you. However, I'm going to opt to go ahead and move around. And the reason why I'm going to move around is because I'm rounding up, but at 40 and beyond, I just can't sit with that, right? Like, I just can't sit with people who are still in the in between, the I'm willing to play the game, waste time kind of phase. I just can't sit with that mentality because I don't have time to waste whether it be mine or somebody else. I don't have the time or the energy to waste and expend on playing around and maybe I luck up on something. It's like, I'm here on the playground. If I find a piece of good candy, I'll eat it. Like, I'm not doing that. Like, no, it's very intentional for me because I don't want to be here at 45 doing the same thing. I don't want to be here at 50 doing the same thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have time for that. I want to be building at 45 and I want to be built and solid by 50. You know what I'm saying? And taking things to new heights. I don't want to be starting from ground one or ground zero. So I move past those people or whatever. But to you, if you want to try it, best of luck to you in the Hunger Games. Or if you just want to waste some time, by all means do it. You know what I mean? When you're younger, I think the younger you are, and really I'm going to say if you're in your 20s, particularly 25 to 27 is getting to be the cutoff range when you just need to really be trying to figure some stuff out for real. At least know something about the direction you want to go, but just wasting time, absolutely not. Um, so you run into that thing or whatever, but then you run into those people, like I said, they do approach you the right way. You ask them the questions. They say they want the partner. They say they're looking to, date with intention. That's another one that people say. Kind of half baked. I'll give them half baked to be nice. And I'm using that very, very like loosely and also just being very generous, saying half baked instead of empty, but half baked because intentionality means that you came into the situation ready to do the work. So when you come to me and I say to you, hey, what are you looking for? If anything in particular with me or anybody else, like what is it that you are looking for? Like what are your goals at the end of the conversation? And you say to me, like, I really want my partner. All the shit that people say, I'm tired of being out here in these streets, yada 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 yada. I have lived a life, yada yada blah 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 blah. So you get beyond the initial playbook answer and people start talking about deeper wants, desires, partner goals and things like that, and you're like, okay, all right, this sounds great. um I enjoy those conversations up to a point, because as I said a moment ago, it's great to know. It's great to know those things, and I really do give people kudos for knowing those things. But dating with intention also means that you have to be ready to do the work. And what I find happens most of the time is that these people who are dating with the intention are working off of a checklist and working off of their list of do's and don'ts. And sometimes that list is imaginary, and it changes day to day. So people really don't be knowing, but they be knowing in some weird way. And so these people will find any and every reason to not engage in building the relationship dynamic because either A, they're ill equipped, right? They're ill equipped, they're inept. They wanted something that they've never had before and it sounded great and it seemed like the thing you should want. But then as it was approaching, they were like, oh, wait a minute, I may not be ready for this. And listen, whatever is it's whatever. But when you go into it saying that you want to date intentionally, you have to show up and be ready to do the work. And that means that you have to challenge yourself about some of these little idiosyncrasies that may be happening, right? You really have to look at it. Why are you throwing away the opportunity because of the shoes that somebody has on their feet, or you notice that today they said something that was just out of alignment with your personal preference. It doesn't even have to be a big thing, right? You guys, maybe you disagree on Kamala. Not that you both didn't vote for her, but maybe you disagree on how you guys got to that finish line, and you're like, oh, I can't date you because and it's like, well, we all like people for different reasons. So even though our journey to or our pathway to may be a little bit different, we arrived at the same destination. And there is nothing wrong with expanding your mind into understanding something outside of what you like or delight in or what you've known. Because here's the thing, you are welcome to do that. However, you will never find yourself in an effective partnership or collaboration where you think that someone has to feel, express, do, and be everything you want them to be, right? First of all, that is not operating in reciprocity, because if somebody applied that to you, it would forever be a one-sided, like, I want this, it better look like this kind of thing. And unless you're just a mindless simp and you're one of those people that don't mind conforming or being submissive and subservient all the time, unless you're one of those people, it's not going to work. And I don't think that more people, the people who really do want something more deep and intimate, I don't believe those people are like that, nor do I think they're looking for those kind of people as well. And so you have to be willing to do the work to say, wait a minute, hold on, this is about expanding, this is about collaborating, this is about partnering. And sometimes you can enlighten and inform people, and that's the beauty in having that kind of exchange. We are all the sum of our lives, our life experiences, our moments, our upbringing. We are all, just a sum of it. And so that means that we may see the world a little bit differently. We both may be looking at the same program and have taken away two totally different messages. Maybe you picked up on something through context that I did not. Maybe you picked up on something in the realm of nuance that I did not. The creative and the collaborative part in it is being able to pull the things collectively and come to a very cohesive, comprehension and breakdown and conclusion of what you both saw there together, so that it makes sense for the both of you, right? I can understand your point, right? I can accept it, and hopefully you can understand mine. But that's not what happens in this situation. Most times these people want things to show up in the way that they want to. It has to sound like, it has to look like, it has to move like, it has to be like what I envisioned it to. And so you find yourself in a repetitive cycle of disconnecting from people before you really even get started. And I think that's why a lot of these people who are saying, I'm ready, I want to be intentional, I want love, I want my partner, they end up over and over again jumping from one person to the next person to the next person to the next person. And it is because you have envisioned this idea of perfection that is constantly changing, so it's very unattainable. that is constantly changing. And the subconscious part of it is that you really are not ready to put in the work. You are saying you are, and maybe being settled in your job, maybe you bought a home, maybe you found consistency in your life that doesn't feel disruptive, that feels even paced, and that and then the commas that's in your the commas and decimals in your bank account is telling you that you're ready, but mentally and emotionally you have created a barrier to being able to fully connect and partner and collaborate with somebody. And until you remove that barrier, it's always going to be something, right? If it's not the shoes on their feet, it's going to be the way that they've changed their hair. It's going to be the way that they spoke. It's going to be the way that they chewed their food. You loved them up until they chewed their food sideways. And it's not even about being like, well, I don't like people who chew. I don't like people who have raggedy shoes. I don't like, it's not about not liking those things singularly. It's the fact that you typically get into the situation with people and then you start finding these very insignificant things and you make them some grandiose reason why you can't move forward. And that is your way of coping with the fact that you are just not ready and your defense mechanism is kicking in. And so that thing for me has been, I will say, I won't say that it's been prevalent, but it has definitely surfaced multiple times in my dating situation. So much so that after my last break, I met a gentleman and he gave me all the things. And I was like, okay, this seems wonderful. We seem to be connecting. And for the first time, I had an immediate connection and level of comfort. And I've never had that with anybody. So I'm a very energetic and spiritually led person. So I do believe that he was different in that way because sometimes those of us that are into energy and spiritual things or whatever, we don't talk to everybody about it because we don't think people understand. And so when that shows up, you recognize it right away. And so I met a gentleman and we kind of clicked on an energetic spiritual level like right away. And then as we started talking about goals and things and like very forthcoming and very like, outward with it or whatever. So it seemed to be a very, very good thing. It was on a trajectory. I was like, you know what? This is new for me. I'm going to go ahead and just, you know what? Let's just do it, Mike. Let's just take off the training wheels, take off the guardrails, and let's go into it. Well, that ended up being a very costly mistake for me. And again, I say this, sometimes a gift does masquerade as a lesson. And so initially I was like, oh my God, this is such a gift. Like, I have been tired of dating. I was about ready to be like, I opened up the door for dating for about a month or two and I'm about to close it back again. And then this unexpected person pops up and is seemingly all of the things that I have never experienced. And, wow, 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 mind blowing. Well, things are going great. And then things all of a sudden are just at a standstill, like at like a complete chop. And so I recognize changes in energy right away. And that's the inflections in your tone. If I can see your face, it is looking at your nonverbal language. It's also looking at your language as well, because when a person disconnects from you, whatever way they disconnect from you, the way in which they communicate. So the word choice, and I always say language is very important. Is very important, and so is word choice. The word choices tend to change as well. And so when I notice those things, I'm very quick to address them. And I address them because I don't like to be around people and I don't like people around me who are feeling some type of way and they don't express it. So I'm always kind of very keen into those energy changes and wanting to like, if I can, dispel anything that you may have taken out of context or maybe, you may have misinterpreted or maybe I miscommunicated that I can clarify. Soon as I notice it, I'm always willing to just be like, hey, like, what's going on? What was that happened right there? I do it with my friends, family, with everybody, because I don't want anybody walking around feeling, any kind of a way, in a negative way. I don't want anybody feeling any kind of way. I don't want anybody under any misnomers or anything like that, especially when something as simple as me clarifying or us just discussing it so you're not walking around with it. And so, true to my form, when I notice things are happening, I'm like, hey, what's going on? Like, what is this or whatever? Oh, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. And then I'm like, okay, well, your energy is a little bit off. So I just want to check in and see what's going on or whatever. Um, and then, like, if there's a reference point I can use, like maybe we had a conversation somewhere and I'm like, okay, maybe I said something, or maybe this moment, even if it's not about me, that's like, well, maybe this moment is sparking something. And I try to think back. Here's the thing: most people will not tell you right away. And even when you ask, people will avoid or lie. And I think some of it is well intended. Maybe they don't want to hurt your feelings, but it's also cowardice as well, because in a situation, right, when things change, you have to be able to say that so that people can move on. And I don't believe in tumultuous or hard disconnections from people. It's just not, it doesn't have to be that way. Like, we got to get it to the point of like catastrophic overload and blowing up. And then that's how most people are used to disconnecting. When really it's just like, I'm not interested anymore. Or maybe you said something and it really triggered me. Or maybe this just interaction itself has triggered me and I didn't expect for it to feel that way. Whatever it is, you need to communicate it. So this last situation that I had was definitely one of those situations where I'm asking and it's like, oh no, nothing's wrong. And then come to find out something is wrong. And then I'm like, okay, like, are we moving in different directions? It's like, no, we're not moving in different directions. And I'm like, okay, I just want to make sure. And then we get to a space where it finally is. And at my incitement, like, are you like, tell me what it is that you see or whatever. Tell me what it is that you see as my role in this situation. And then you finally say, well, I feel this way. Again, when I speak to people's intentions or whatever, and I think back to previous conversations, right? If your intention was to date and get to know somebody, you show up prepared to do the work. And so all of this back and forth, all of this not willing to be honest with yourself first, because if you don't be honest with you, I surely don't expect you to be honest with me. But if you are not ready to do the work, to dispel, to disband all of that negative trauma, all of that negative experience that has left you unable to do the things that you're saying you want to do, you probably shouldn't be dating, because intentional dating really does require you to be intentional about coming in, partnering, learning, communicating, and working through some things. And if you think you're going to show up and everything is going to happen however you envisioned it has to sound like, it has to look like, it has to feel like, you have to be like. If you think, and that's an ever changing thing, like I said earlier, you are not ready for partnership. You are not ready for a lifelong partner, because that requires work. It requires two people working in a parallel fashion down the same path that oftentimes takes a detour, turn left or right. But you hold hands, you figure it out, or you separate, and then you come back at the end of the street. But it requires a level of communication and collaboration. And if you're not ready, you have to just say you're not ready. And that's the other thing that I find very prudent too, is like, sometimes we walk into something thinking it's one thing, a gift, and then sometimes it can be the lesson. And so the lesson in that is, if I know that I'm not ready, first of all, I don't do this to anybody else, right? I figure out about this situation what made me not ready, right? And then I decide, either I want to move in the direction I said I was going to move in, or I'm going to alter my destination. Maybe I don't want a relationship right now. Maybe I just want somebody to spend some time with, be my pen pal, be my social worker, be my whatever, my confidant, or whatever it may be. Maybe you reassess in that way or whatever and figure that out. But what does have to happen is you have to be willing to do the work to get to either place. And when something is not in in proposition for the thing that you started out as, you have to be man, woman, they, them enough to just say, hey, things have changed. You should be able to do it on your own without being prompted. But even when you are asked, you owe it to people to be honest. If you know that that has changed, if you walked in today and said, listen, I see you romantically. I want to get to know you. I want us to work towards that or whatever. Great. Nobody's making any commitments. Nobody's proposing. So it is all in the name of building some type of connection with each other. But the moment, right, you guys say that that's what it is and you're both working towards it, when the one person falls out of alignment with that, it is your duty to communicate that you are just not ready, able to, or wanting to move forward in that direction. It's the responsible thing to do, so that you don't have the other person there wondering, so that you don't let it get to a catastrophic event and the person just be like, well, what the hell just happened? And then you like, oh, I'm defending myself. I don't give up. Like, why do we have to do that when it really is just a conversation like, hey, like I was feeling you. Maybe you did X, Y, and Z, and there's nothing wrong with X, Y, and Z that you did. But for me, that's just not my get up or my get down. Or maybe it's just like, yo, like this situation is taking me a little bit faster than I wanted to go. And I just got to bow out. But you have to be able to tell somebody at the point that you know that you just don't want it anymore, regardless of what the reason is. For me, just say you don't want it anymore, right? So that we're not sitting here working on opposite sides of the street looking crazy. So I say that to say my last situation definitely gave that. It seemed like the most wonderful gift at the beginning, but it ended up being a lesson. And the lesson in it for me is that even though something looks great, this is a tale as old as time and a cautionary tale, but even though something looks great, it's not always as it seems. And when something is that way, something, what is that saying? Don't look a gift horse in the face or something or another. But the lesson in it for me was just like, yes, sometimes everything that sometimes things that glitter can be gold, but oftentimes it's not. And it is your duty and it is your responsibility to test it and make sure that the gold is pure. Don't just take it for its face value. I just came up with that. So that is what my last situation taught me, in this dating realm. But again, first time I've ever had a spiritual connection, so that was wonderful. But the other thing is that it did create a possibility model in my mind that, okay, there were some attributes that I didn't think would present themselves. Now, I don't know if they were real or manufactured or not. I'm only going to go with what I know and what I felt at the time. And so a lot of the attributes that I didn't think were possible were there. And so I'm just grateful and thankful to God for putting that in my space and in my periphery so that I can understand it when I see it. Okay. And hopefully the lesson next time comes with a gift at the end of it instead of the vice versa, whatever. So not all for naught, as the people say. Definitely, enjoy the moments leading up to, and of course, again, just ending it on a note of like maturity and like, okay, this is not what you want. We're not at the same place, and that's okay too. And that's the other thing in it too. Again, like when you know, you know. And for me, I just had to say, like, I recognize, I'm acknowledging, and this is not what I signed up for. And so it didn't have to, it wasn't no big thing. It didn't have to be negative, and you just walk away. But if I can leave you with anything, is that being intentional requires true intention. And the intention is not necessarily or only about the end goal of partnership, marriage, and companionship. It's not always just about that. That is a very broad way of looking at it. It is truly about being ready to show up, available emotionally, mentally, spiritually, any way the leads can present themselves, to be open to it and to be ready to do the work. And that is untying some things that were knotted for no reason, and also discovering some things that may or may not have been on your vision board because you are not working in your own periphery anymore. You are trying to work into a lifelong partnership that requires both of you to input, output, and participate. And so you have to be ready for when things are not exactly how you would envision them to be, and curate the experience that ultimately you both want. That is what it's about. It's not about finding the perfect person, because there is no such thing as a perfect person. There's no farm where you go and say, all right, you meet my checklist. Here, come here. There's no such thing as that, but there is a such thing as finding a person that you can wake up to every day, a person that makes you feel safe mentally, physically, all the leads that are possible, a person that you can talk to about anything without feeling judged, a person that the things that you once said you wouldn't do for somebody, you actually find yourself doing for that person and loving it because it pours into you guys as a family unit. It's about finding that person that you want to live life with, grow through things with, and learn with, right? Craig the Writer Stewart says all the time relationships are the place that people go to grow and to learn. And I truly do believe that. I also believe that communication is our partner and clarity is our friend. Amen. Come on, Craig the Writer Stewart. Anyway, y'all, this is the Michael Experience Podcast. These are my thoughts on my life, my way, and I will see y'all on the next one. So until then, love on yourself before you can go love on somebody. And peace and love, y'all. Till next time. Bye.